My 33 female father died recently. He had been married to his widow, Penny, for about 7 years. I was not close with my father. We spoke regularly and enjoyed each other's company, but I can't say we knew each other well for many years before his death. When he died, I was surprised to learn that he had left his entire estate to me. He put everything in a trust a year before his death, and I'm the sole beneficiary. Besides a small sum he left to Penny, the lawyer said he was advised not to leave her anything in case she tried to contest it. Everything, including his house, is now mine. Furthermore, my father's lawyers and mine have advised that the will is structured such that it would be near impossible and costly to challenge. I don't want my father's money. I don't need it. And given our relationship, I don't feel right using it. However, he obviously wanted me to have it, so I intend to transfer everything over to my daughter, make her the beneficiary of the trust, and she'll have that in addition to her own trust fund once she's of age. However, I don't want to keep my father's house. I don't live in the same country as my father, and I don't want to deal with the admin of his possessions. I want the legal business done, close the book on a very painful chapter, and grieve quietly. The trouble is, Penny lives in the house. Penny didn't work and was financially dependent on my father. So while the lawyers say she could fight to stay living in the house, she likely can't afford legal counsel. Also, because of her lack of income, she would never be able to maintain the house, which is quite large. So I would then have to keep up the house and grounds while she lived there, which I'm not willing to do, both because of the cost and because of the continued involvement with my father's life, which I do not want. I have notified her via the lawyers of the intention to sell the house, which has led to vicious and vitriolic messages from her kids calling me evil and heartless. I understand that this is inconvenient for them, but I'm not responsible for what my father decided to do, nor am I responsible for the people or the mess he left behind. I'm not doing this to get one over on Penny. I'm just trying to be done with the traumatic part of my life. Am I the idiot? Edit. My father was a peculiar man. It's quite possible Penny did something small to irritate him one day, and this is how he took revenge. Not the idiot. If Penny has the means, she can buy the house from you, or her children can buy it for her. If she does not have the means, she's probably planning to mooch off of you. Your dad has been unfair to her, sure, but that's not your fault nor your responsibility. Penny isn't an idiot for being upset. Her kids are kind of idiots for being little harassing losers. Or Penny was under the impression her husband cared about her enough to continue taking care of her after he passed. That's what most single-income homes typically did and still do. It sounds like you and Penny have something in common. You've both been mistreated by your father. You have no obligation to her. You're not the idiot. But perhaps you could take this opportunity to be merciful to her and use the proceeds of the house to purchase a small house or an apartment, since you don't need the money at this time. Penny could live in it for rent or cost. You could hire a rental management company for which the tenant could pay, so you don't have to be involved. Then once Penny passes, you could sell. It might be a good investment. I would give her enough money out of the sale of the house to let her buy her own home, plus a bit of living money, and just be done with it. Showing kindness to people, especially when it would be easy for OP, who seems to be already financially well set, would be a small thing to OP and life-changing to his father's widow. Don't listen to stupid advice. You owe her nothing. Do not give her money without talking to your lawyers. Once you've set a price with your realtor, give her and her family a chance to purchase the house before you list it. Then if they refuse, go ahead and sell. Not the idiot, and will be if you sell and give her nothing. I'm big on the idea that a person makes their choices with their will for a reason, and they should be honored. From what OP has said, I honestly feel like this is a double-sided torture. He's hurting both Penny and his daughter by putting her through this. What kind of father sets his daughter up to make his wife homeless upon his death? If he had a reason, he should have shared it with OP, at the very least. Anyone who does this to their child and doesn't think of the emotional impact it'll have on everyone is very, very messed up. My daughter, young child, and I, female 23, live in a small house near the mountains with my grandparents, female 67 and male 70. So you can pretty much hear everything that's going on since all of the rooms are right next to each other. Even though we don't have neighbors for miles, my grandparents get angry if there's too much noise. Mind you, my grandpa's a heavy sleeper, and my grandma sleeps with earplugs, and they always have a loud fan going in the background. Yesterday, I promised to let my daughter do whatever she wanted, as long as it didn't include a mess or any trouble. Of course, as long as she got all of her chores done, and she did. So around 9:30 p.m., she wanted to do some Disney sing-alongs before her bedtime, so I agreed. I let her sing along to Let It Go on the TV, and even though I told her to keep it down multiple times, she got really loud when the climax hit. Unfortunately, it somehow woke up my grandparents, who were pretty mad. I apologized to my grandparents and said it wouldn't happen again, and that we'd stop with the sing-alongs. But instead of forgiving and forgetting, my grandma shouted, "We let you live here with us, yet you can't respect us when we're trying to sleep? No wonder your mom kicked you out." She warned me that if I kept making noise, she was going to make me pack my bags and leave, and that I'd take my daughter with me. I've caused trouble in the past because I've lived here since I was 17, when my parents kicked me out pregnant, but I've calmed down a lot since then. I honestly think she was exaggerating this situation because I was just letting my daughter sing, and she just happened to get too loud, but she still yelled at both of us and threatened to throw us out of her house late at night. I started crying, and so did my daughter. My daughter begged my grandma not to make us leave, and she continued about how she would be ready to pack our bags if we didn't stop crying to my daughter. My grandpa tried calming her down and telling her that it wasn't that big of a deal. That's when she finally went back to bed. I immediately turned off the TV, and my daughter and I went to bed. She was still crying. I know I probably shouldn't have let her sing any karaoke while they were sleeping, but I don't think my grandma should have handled it the way she did. My daughter's still upset today, and my grandma refuses to apologize. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. You were thrown out of your parents' house when you were pregnant, and your grandparents were kind enough to take you in. Now you're unwilling to respect their rules? I can't imagine this went from being a perfect angel, and this was your first infraction, to being threatened with homelessness. A reaction like that suggests that this was the straw that broke the camel's back. This sing-along happens at 9:30 at night? What was a young child doing up at 9:30 anyway? In what world is that acceptable when living in someone else's home while they're trying to sleep? Grandma already has earplugs and a fan to drown out regular noise. OP took that as a challenge. OP, you have a young child to provide for, and keeping quiet at night is your housing condition. You risk your daughter's housing because you think your grandparents' rules are unreasonable? That's a very bad judgment on your part. You should be instilling respectful behavior in your child and working on saving money to get your own home where you can make the rules eventually. Apologize to your grandparents and start working on yourself and your relationship with your family. You're an adult now and should be acting as such. I agree that OP was the idiot. My only caveat is that I don't love that Grandma was screaming at the young child that she would be thrown out. This is an adult conversation. The adult deserved to get her butt reamed out. The child was simply following her mother's direction, and she didn't deserve the same treatment. I, 24 female, got engaged to Derek, 30, male, 1 month ago. Prior to that, we had known each other for 6 months. I know that's not a long time, but when you know, you know. We are madly in love and ready to commit to each other fully. My sister, 26, has a problem with that, though. She was very supportive of my relationship with Derek before we got engaged. When I sent her a text telling her that we were engaged, she responded by saying, "Congratulations." But then when I saw her the week after, she got all serious and said I should strongly consider the marriage. She told me that I was young and could meet people I loved more. That was offensive to me because I love Derek more than anything, and she's basically saying that my love isn't that important. She also told me that Derek and I could date a while longer before we married, but we're already fully committed to each other, so we might as well get married and be recognized as soulmates in the eyes of the law. Anyway, the conversation was so hurtful to me. I eventually asked her very directly, "Do you support me marrying Derek?" She said no. So I stood up, told her she shouldn't be at the wedding if she didn't want us to get married, and left. I haven't talked to her since, although she has texted me multiple times asking to talk. Derek and I were working on the wedding guest list yesterday, and we both agreed my sister should not come if she doesn't support us. So we're planning not to invite her. I mentioned this to my friend yesterday and pointed out that it may be rude of me not to invite her. So, am I the idiot for not inviting my unsupportive sister to my wedding? You are the idiot. You've not known him long enough to actually love him. You're infatuated. On top of that, are you ready to ruin the relationship with your sister for a guy you actually do not know? The fact that he's ready to allow for estrangement is very concerning. Narcissists and abusers like to isolate their victims. That's my concern regarding him encouraging this rift with your sister. That stood out to me. Someone who's 30 should and would understand that a 6-month relationship jumping to marriage is odd, even if they happen to be one of the few people where it ends up working out. A mature 30-year-old would say, "She's your sister. She has a right to be concerned. She doesn't understand our relationship," or whatever. He's really quick to jump on the isolate you from your family train, and that's concerning. Sister being concerned isn't toxic or unusual. Any adult would see that. They both sound childish and not ready for marriage. OP, I've had pimples longer than you've known your partner. It actually sounds like your sister just wants what's best for you. Don't get me wrong. You can make your own choices regarding your relationships, but it's kind of sketchy to me that your fiancé is fine with you just cutting contact with your sister instead of trying to be supportive and help smooth things over. I love my husband, and I would never encourage him to cut contact with his family with such ease. I have a friend who's been in love with the one 3 different times. She's 27. We're working on her understanding of the concept. If he's the right one right now, he will still be the right one if you wait a year or so. OP, I think you're being very naive, and I agree with your sister. My wife and I have been married for 7 years, and for the most part have a great relationship, but there is a major point of strife with transportation. She does not have a license and has no interest in driving. I did purchase driver training for her twice, and I bought a second car which is now collecting dust. She didn't ever agree to practice after lessons and didn't want to take the exam because she was too anxious. I suggested she try therapy for driving anxiety, given that my job provides insurance, but she's not interested. This is usually not a problem, as I drive our son, too, to daycare and then drop her off. This adds to my commute, but it's good because we only pay for parking once. About twice a week, I have to work late, which I warn her of 2 weeks in advance. Usually she has her mom or sister drive her home on those days. Using this system, we've gotten along for the last few years. I'm on vacation for 2 weeks, which is my first time off since December 2021. I asked her 3 months ago to find some way into work so that I could sleep in, let our son sleep in, and be able to do activities with him out of the house. She brushed me off and was non-committal. Fast forward to today. Of course, she found no other way to work. She didn't even look at a bus schedule. She says they're too dirty and too dangerous due to drug addicts. She didn't ask anyone to drive her. So I woke up at 5:30 a.m. to drive her, 1 hour each way in rush hour. Now I have just enough time to clean, finish laundry, get groceries, feed our son, and then turn around and return. I have no time to go to the pool with our son, which I told her was my priority today. After I got home, I sent her a very frustrating text saying, I can't believe she would do this, and she could find her own way tomorrow. I said, don't even bother trying to wake me up, because I'm not setting the alarm and I will ignore you. She said I was an idiot and that this was unacceptable. Am I the idiot here? Isn't the phrase weaponized incompetence? She had the time to find an alternative. Whoops, sorry. I can't find someone to drive me, so you have to. How much is an Uber? She can pay for one. Not the idiot. Enjoy the day with your son tomorrow. Agreed. She needs to learn how to drive or get over her fear of public transport. There will eventually be a time when nobody's available to chauffeur a full-grown woman to work. You've offered to take her to therapy on your insurance, and she's refused. She's choosing to keep this problem with no regard to how it affects everyone who has to readjust to accommodate her. You told her 3 months ago. You are entitled to vacation and time with your son. She appears to have made no effort to make other arrangements or even attempt to take public transit. Getting up at 5:30 a.m., spending 1 hour each way in traffic, plus doing household chores is not a vacation or relaxing in any way. I mostly feel sorry for your poor son, who likely has to wake up at 5:30 a.m. just to sit in a car for 2 hours to drive his mom to work. Why are you married to someone who refuses to actually be an adult? I fully get that she has anxiety, and Lord knows so do I, but this is absolutely ridiculous. I would rather be alone than with someone like your wife. I have a tween daughter with my ex. We co-parent, but we don't have a good relationship. We've had a lot of trouble with him trying to alienate my daughter from me. I also have 2 more kids, a young male and a female toddler. My daughter is extremely talkative. She won't stay quiet for even a second. The other day, I was having a terrible day. My son had some problems at school and my daughter didn't go to sleep, and I had to cook because everyone was hungry, so I was really busy. And then my daughter came calling me like she always does, "Mom, Mom, Mom, Mom." I finally snapped at her and asked her if she needs to tell me now. She said no. I told her then she could tell me later. Late at night, her dad came to my home angrily demanding I get out of his way so he could see his daughter. He took her and drove to the doctor's office. I went with them as well. Apparently she was feeling sick, and when she saw me busy, she called her dad. She's fine now, but her dad called me an idiot and won't let me see her even though it's my custody time. You are the idiot. Do you even love your daughter? The way you talk about it makes it sound like she's some random, annoying, unrelated kid that you must keep at your home for some reason. Your attitude of she's not your only kid, she knows that. She knows you have 2 kids, but she had no choice in that. It's quite obvious, but what you could at least do is at least pay attention and not take being a mother of 3 out on your oldest daughter and expect her to behave a certain way to make your life better. She's a child you're teaching to be quiet, be seen and not heard. And frankly, I wouldn't fault her dad for being protective. You need a reality check. OP, you got triggered because of the noise levels. Fair enough. But what makes you the idiot is how you reacted to that. Your kid didn't do anything wrong. She came to tell you something, and in your overwhelmed state, you yelled at her and lost the opportunity to help her when she was sick. Why didn't you go to her later to see what she wanted? Please go to your little one and apologize for how you handled this situation and explain to her that you will actively try to be better and how. I am a young teen female and my brother is a tween. Our dad has been with Carol, 47 female, for nearly 2 years and they got married in early November. Carol hates us, especially me. She calls me a problem child and always picks at me and is rude. She compares us to her daughters, constantly picks fights, and tries to parent my brother and me. She yells and calls us names when we have to go over. If one of her daughters does something to us, like taking our stuff, she just brushes it off and laughs, and our dad lets it happen. We have no choice but to see him 4 times a month because of his and our mom's court agreement. But we hate it there and we hate Carol, so we didn't go to their wedding, even though Dad was super angry and fought with us for 2 months after we told him we weren't going. So we skipped the wedding. Last Sunday, he picked us up and drove us to his house. I noticed they were in a better mood than they have been lately. Carol was blabbing at us about their honeymoon in Florida. When we got to the house, Dad announced that they had something to show us and for us to go sit in the living room while he got it. My brother and I went and sat down, but we both had a bad feeling. The girls were nowhere around, which was weird. Carol came to sit on the other couch, and she was just staring at us, looking like she had won something. And my dad comes in with a Blu-ray disc and puts it into the player and sits with Carol. And Carol says in this happy, witchy voice, "This is since the two of you missed it, so you can see what you missed." It started playing and we realized it was a video of their wedding day. A few seconds in, it was edited to a clip of them saying "I do" and kissing. My brother saw this and started to cry, and I just got so mad. We hate Carol, so that's why we didn't go in the first place. She wasn't going to force us to look at it now. So I grabbed my brother's hand, pulled him off the couch, and said we weren't going to watch this. Carol sneered and said we had no choice. I told her she'd never be in charge of us, no matter how much she wished she was, and told my dad we were leaving. I admit I shouted this part. She told me to stop being a little witch, and I shouted back that she was a big fat witch who should know better. Rude, I know. She shouted at my dad, "Are you just going to let her talk to me like that?" And Dad just kind of laughed and said he wasn't dealing with this and went to his room and locked the door. I took my brother to get his stuff on, grabbed my bag, and left, with Carol screaming at me most of that time. I don't know most of what she was saying. It was too loud and screamy. I started walking with my brother down the side of the road and called Mom on my cell to come get us. We walked for about 10 minutes before she met us on the road. Dad is mad at me. Carol is angry, but I don't care. Mom is upset, only because she thinks I shouldn't have walked my brother along the road. If I'm the idiot, it's all right. She's never liked us, barely tried to get to know us, and lets her kids do whatever they want to us. She makes fun of my body too, which is why I finally snapped and called her fat. She ripped a piece of pizza from my hands because she said I was greedy when she had 3 chins. Am I the idiot for how I responded to my dad and stepmom? Not the idiot. What a disgusting power play. She knew it would be painful for you and was reveling in the feeling that she was in a position to force you. Your dad doesn't have to marry someone you like, but in my opinion, as a father, he is required to be a parent and defend you against crap like this, and to most certainly not participate in it. Bullying and verbal abuse are abuse. You and your brother don't have to take it. I'm sorry you're put in this horrible position time and time again. And yes, it's bizarre for someone to try and make you watch their wedding video. You could have asked for popcorn and criticized every aspect of the wedding. Love this. OMG, you wore that? Wow, what an interesting dress choice. I'm sure the discount made up for its general ugliness. Why does your hair look so stringy? I would sue. Did that cake come from Walmart? It looks really dry. Did Dad just wink at that other lady? She's so pretty. OP, talk to your mom and ask her to get the custody arrangement changed. Sweetheart, you need proof she's doing this to you. Don't egg her on, but always keep your phone charged and recording. Next time she gets unreasonably upset, record it and take it to your mom, who can then take it to the judge for full custody. You're getting to an age where the courts may actually consider your opinion regarding where you spend your time. Can we also applaud OP for not only sticking up for herself, which is scary enough, but also her little brother? You're an awesome sister. Keep it up. Your mother's clearly the one raising you well. Carol is toxic, and she, a grown adult, was calling you a little witch? So wrong on so many levels. My husband and I have 3 children, Ethan, teen male, Barbara, teen female, and John, tween male. Public schooling in my country is terrible, so my husband and I, despite being lower middle class, do our best to pay for private school for all of our children, but we cannot pay in full without weighing in the pocket, so we strongly encourage our children to take a scholarship test. Ethan got 70%, Barbara 40%, and John took the exam this year and got 20% off of his tuition. It is worth noting that tuition increases from year to year. For example, we pay $900 for barber school, while for John, $500, not counting the discount. But the discount has a condition. You cannot take the final exam at the end of the year, otherwise you lose it. Barb has always struggled with one subject, so we managed to put private lessons to help, but she ended up forgetting to turn in 2 projects. Just forgot. At the end of the year, that constituted 30% of the grade, and she did poorly on the test. so she went to the final exam and consequently missed the discount. She took the scholarship test, but didn't get such a discount, 15%. We talked to her. We said that we wouldn't be able to pay for their school tuition because it's too high, and we also must pay for school materials also. She started saying that John would go to school and thought it was unfair that she had to leave a school that she had been there for 4 years and that she had friends there. In addition to her being at an age that's important for college, and that it's not fair for us to pay for school for John, who has almost the same discount as her, and not for her. We tried to explain by saying that John's discount is low, but his tuition is less than hers, so these are different situations. Besides, he can retake the exam for a bigger discount next year, but she could also try next year for a better discount. But we couldn't afford hers at the moment because she lost that discount because she forgot to send projects. It's a tense situation, as she says that we're playing favoritism among the children and undermining her in the most important school years. By the way, the school is one of the cheapest, and it's really good. She didn't want to do another scholarship test. Am I the idiot? Edit. Final exam. When the person's 4 bi-monthly grades of the year give a grade lower than the average, the student takes a final test of the subject to pass the year. You are the idiot. If you can't afford private school without a discount, then you can't afford private school. What did you expect to happen? So your daughter would be happy to go to a public school because her parents banked on her getting a discount rather than being realistic about what they could afford? To top it off, you're still sending her 2 siblings to the school. So let me get this straight. You got private lessons to help Barb in school, and Barb still messed up multiple school assignments, did badly on another test, and now refuses to take another scholarship test, and is complaining that her brothers aren't being punished for the consequences of her actions? That's not favoritism. If anything, it would be favoritism if you did punish your sons. It's not their fault their sister forgot to hand in multiple school assignments and did poorly on a test, even after private tutoring. They don't deserve to be punished for her actions, and your daughter's acting entitled. You are not the idiot. Many people think that mid-teens is too young to be responsible for her schoolwork, and the parents are at fault for the daughter's failure. When they forget, it generally just means they didn't care enough in their brains to think it's important. It goes to show what the daughter prioritizes. She screwed herself up by not turning in her assignments. But unfortunately, actions have consequences, and the consequences of her actions are that she doesn't get what she wants. My husband's friend passed away months ago, leaving behind his wife. My husband considered him a brother, so he began offering help to his widow and showing up literally every weekend when he's off work to help her with everything. It didn't bother me. Not much, but still. Now he told me that it'd be nice if we invited her to Christmas dinner with us, since she has no family and other friends are busy. I refused, but he insisted, saying it would mean so much to her, especially since this was her first Christmas without her husband, and we should comfort her. I refused and said it was supposed to be a family celebration, and my family would show up, so there were plenty of guests already. But he said she was the one who needed this family atmosphere the most. I snapped and firmly told him I would not agree to let him invite her to Christmas dinner with us, and he needed to drop it because it made me uncomfortable. He argued and then started sulking about it, saying that I was being cruel for no reason and that he wasn't asking for much, just an extra chair or plate for her. But I said it would be awkward for my family and me, especially since we're not so close. Am I the idiot? OP, have you clearly communicated to your husband how much you deeply resent him spending time with this woman? Because that seems to be the bigger issue here. Yeah, we get it. You're jealous. And that's a conversation to have with your husband, that he needs to remember that he's married to you, and that yes, it's sad that her husband died, but that doesn't mean that he needs to be there for the widow all of the time. I really don't think spending a few weekends with someone who just lost their husband is like an excessive thing. My wife moved in with her best friend for a week after she got divorced, and I'm glad she did, because having friends and being there for your friends is normal and should be celebrated. And remember, your husband is grieving too. A best friend is different than your late husband's best friend. Visiting for an hour or two each weekend, but spending the entire weekend is weird. Does the widow not have a support system outside of OP's hubby? It obviously does bother her, but OP feels like she shouldn't be bothered. Is it because she's prone to jealousy but wants to be rational? Or is it because there are red flags that she's trying to ignore? OP isn't sure which. It sounds like your husband's just trying to be a shoulder for his friend's widow to cry on. If you think something shady is happening, not inviting her to Christmas doesn't fix anything. You are the idiot, OP, for not expressing your concerns and not being more understanding. Put yourself in her shoes. What if your husband passed away and you needed that level of comfort from his best friend? You should go with him on weekends and help with making her some freezer meals, cleaning a few things, or being a female support person for her. Even the little things can take a lot of stress off of someone. My teen female dad is a piece of crap. I'm sorry, but he just is. He isn't all that terrible to me or my brother, nearly adult, but he's horrible to our mom. Growing up, it was very obvious that our dad saw our mom as lesser than. He'd yell at her over everything and make her responsible for everything, cleaning, taking care of us, etc. My mom never said anything and tried her hardest to make it seem like everything was okay. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I'm too scared to stand up to my dad. I always freeze. My brother, on the other hand, does not give a crap. He yells back and isn't afraid of anything. I think my brother realized that I'm too scared to protect our mom and recently told us that he's going to college nearby and will be commuting, as the college doesn't require first years to live on campus. My parents were confused, and my dad was a little upset. He kept telling him that he would miss out and regret it, but my brother didn't budge. Mom even told him he should go and that she would be fine, but my brother said they're lucky he's even going to college. Well, yesterday, we got a surprise visit from our grandma, Dad's mom. She never visits, and when she does, she treats my mom like crap too, so we weren't very excited. But we were civil because, well, if we aren't, she'll find a way to blame our mom. It was okay at first, but then she asked my mom, "Is this what you wanted? Are you proud of yourself?" My mom started to shake, but my brother immediately got in between them. Grandma just rolled her eyes and asked my brother if he was going to throw his life away just because he thought his mom's too fragile to survive without him. My brother didn't say anything. I then spoke up and said, "It's not because of Mom. It's because of you and Dad. You guys are horrible, and you really need to get the heck out." My grandma immediately started yelling at me. She said she expected better and said I was rude, disrespectful, and bratty. She then told my mom that she had raised horrible kids before leaving angrily. I know I was just standing up for my mom, and my brother keeps telling me I'm fine, but I feel guilty. According to my dad, my grandma apparently adores me, and I broke her heart. And it's not like I made things better, maybe even worse. My dad's expecting me to apologize, but I don't know. I don't want to. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your dad is just manipulating you by saying you broke her heart. Doesn't sound like she has one to break anyway. OP's mom raised good kids. Grandma raised a brat, but she's a brat too. Yeah, seems like the father inherited that lack of heart as well. For real. My grandma apparently adores me, according to my dad. Really? Because she just called you rude, disrespectful, and bratty, and said you were a horrible kid. I know it's awful to finally see her for who she truly is, but she only liked you because you didn't stand up to her or your dad and let them walk all over you. The moment you spoke up against them, they both turned on you. That's what abusers do. Exactly. I'm 34, and I've had a grandma who adores me all my life. She's 94 now. You know what a grandma who adores you does? Gives cookies and money when your parents aren't watching, tells embarrassing stories about your parents, and plays games with you. Have you spoken to a trusted adult or therapist about some things happening at home? Neither you nor your brother should feel like it's your job to protect your mother. I'm a 21-year-old female. My sister has been friends with Cleo since they were children. I've known Cleo my entire life. For the past 5 years, I looked after my sister's and Cleo's children at minimum 3 days a week. I'll do a school run, etc. I recently became single, so bills and looking after my child, one, means I have to look seriously at what I'm earning. Since Cleo and my sister are family, they'd sometimes not pay me or not pay me on time. I've never had a serious job outside of childminding for Cleo and my sister, so I put Cleo down as a reference after asking. She said yes to me, then refused when she got called, which is as bad as a bad referral. After 5 years, I'd expect more. My sister is 100% on Cleo's side, saying Cleo has offered to pay me more and needs my help still. They went to drop the children off, but I'm adamant against babysitting. My mom says it's an idiot move because I technically didn't give notice. Can be upset with Cleo, but my sister didn't do anything wrong and had no notice. My sister won't let me see her children anymore. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Oh, it's obvious what type of game Cleo is playing. She's trying to sabotage you so you cannot get a job because then she'll lose her underpaid babysitter. She isn't your friend, OP. Don't babysit for her ever again. This includes your sister since she's in on the plan also. You worked for Cleo and your sister for 5 years, and they would sometimes not pay you because they're family? Unless they reciprocate, the family line is an excuse to take advantage of you. And what Cleo did to you was despicable. Not content with just declining your request for a reference, she lied to you that she'd give you one just so she could deliberately sabotage your application when the prospective employer called her. And there's something very wrong with your sister if she takes Cleo's side after that. No matter whether a person is family, if they refuse to stop treating you like dirt, sometimes the best thing to do for your own well-being is to cut them out of your life. OP, contact the job who reached out to Cleo to explain. Reference checks are highly problematic because things like Cleo's refusal are super common. If this is a job you want, OP, it's worth attempting to explain to the employer.